Okay, there we go. And we'll wait till at least some people get on here. There we go. Well, it's now 10:30, so that means it's time for Brainstorming the Human Connection, brought to you by the South Dakota Humanities Council. This is an interactive program where we bring on people who have something that we feel that would be useful for you to know. And we have a conversation. We'll be talking, myself and our guests will be talking, but you're part of the conversation as well, and we hope that you will join in. You may not have anything at the moment that you want to ask, but as questions come up, we'd appreciate it if you would maybe jot them down or jot down a memory note for yourself, and we will have opportunities throughout this program for you to ask questions, to maybe make comments, personal stories, those kind of things. So we look forward to an interactive conversation as opposed to just some talking heads. This today will be a very interesting opportunity for all of us to look into storytelling. Okay, and I came really late to this storytelling game because I've been mostly a nonfiction writer, almost sort of like poo-pooing anything that wasn't like data. But I've actually come almost 180 degrees in understanding how important stories are to people and how they help people to make sense of the world around them. I kind of make a comparison to nonfiction is in a lot of ways like giving people a lot of ingredients and saying, oh, you can make different things out of this ingredient. But the fiction is more like you've cooked the thing already, and you serve it up and it's already done. And so people can like decide they like it or not, yeah, it could have been something else, but you've made it one thing because you've made a story. And I think humans have been telling stories for a long time, and they've made sense of things through stories, whether it's like understanding the weather, it's understanding their origins, it's understanding many things that don't really make sense right away, at least not to everyone in the same way. And so people over time have developed storytelling as a way to share their life experiences. And today we have a person who is a professional storyteller, a person who is given a lot of thought to the value of telling stories and is going to share some of that knowledge and insight with us today. And our guest is Kansas Middletent. Welcome, Kansas. After his mic is on. It's in there somewhere. It was on a minute ago. Anyway, while we're waiting, I think I know his sound works because we were just talking a minute ago. It might, but you know how these computer things work. As soon as you need them, they decide not to work. There he goes. Yeah. It works that way for everybody, man. It doesn't mean you're hated by the universe. Yeah, we go through everything, make all the checks and balances, and then you're on, and then nothing.
Right. Thank you, Lawrence, for that introduction. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, doing great. Got a little extra, energy in me because I always love telling stories and being with people. And, it's one of my favorite things to do is share and interact and just, give a little bit of give a piece of yourself to others to just make the world a better place, I feel. So I always like to be in safe places like this. Um, how madakyapi tashunkikokia emanchiapi naha iyuha chante washtea nape chayuzapi. Kuichasha oyanke awati ake midakyapi lila tanya wahilo. Out of respect for my culture and my ancestors, my Native American heritage and tribe, that's the greeting in my Lakota language. It translates out to hello, my relatives. My name is Kansas Middletent. My Lakota name is Crazy Bronc Rider. That's a cool, different story in its own, how I got my name. Today, I come to you all with a good heart, and I hope that we can share and encourage another with an open mind. And after this meeting, that we go together and we move forward in a good way. So, Wupila, thank you guys for you guys' time today. The first thing I'd like to do after my introduction, typically is me and Lawrence talked a little bit, but I wanted to share a little story to kind of set the tone. Today we're going to talk about storytelling, and we're going to talk about the power of storytelling. So some of the presentations I built, and the things I do with not just youth but community, conferences, and different people like us. I also go to book reading clubs and such. But I use the power of storytelling to build resiliency in others. Typically in my own people, our youth, with the obstacles and the environmental things that we face every day through our society and our environment. We got to teach our children to be tough. And I always tell them in a way, I'd rather build up strong children than trying to repair a broken adult. And so that's the power of what storytelling can do. Also, in Lakota culture and my tradition, we have this word called waktoglatka. And what that means is it's recounting of your deeds or recounting of your story. And mostly warriors kind of did that. So when a warrior such as, Crazy Horse or Sitting Bull or Red Cloud, you still hear their stories of today. They got to recount the things that they did in battle, not in a way to brag or to be cocky or to say I did this, but in a way for our young people to emulate. This is what a warrior does. This is what you do. And a warrior, a fighting man, if you will, in Lakota society, he never wanted to take a life. We had a thing called counting coup, and counting coup was the ability to touch your enemy with your hand or your war club in not even a gentle way, but just be able to touch them and not kill them or not exert force, but to say, hey, I had you, but because I don't want to take your life, this is just the ultimate attest to I had you in a sense, and it's humility. And so Watoglatka, I share that with you because I do it because our young people, we struggle in our societies, our youth, our Native American youth, and our youth everywhere. They struggle with the way society is now. And far too often, media, social media, society should look like, or they only want to paint the negative things of what society is. And if you're not strong enough in your mind to be able to look past the negative and see the positive, our young people are going to be stuck in that mindset, and we're just going to be given negative stuff without us even knowing it. Subliminally, our mind's going to be altered because of what we see. And so I taught Waktoglatka to our youth to say, hey, look at me, not try to be me, but there's positive things that we can do. And I want to share the positive. I want you to see my light so I can help you start your light or rekindle or whatever it is, but to stories in a good way.
So,
The story I'd like to share with you. Oh, I'm sorry, Lawrence.
no, I was going to say, before we get really into that, I'd like to have people know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about where you came from, where you're born, and your family situation. So we have a sense of you as something more than a talking head.
Oh man, Lawrence, you do not want to put a quarter inside me like that and get me going. No, I'm just teasing. Um, So myself, I'm an enrolled member of the Lower Bruce tribe. I'm 35 years old, a father to 5 beautiful children. I kind of have a quite story myself, my partner, my Mahasani, my better half is Mahasani's better half, and Lakota are my other half. Um, we've been high school sweethearts, and we overcame a lot. We were high school sweethearts. At the same time, we're also high school parents. So we have a 17-year-old daughter, and you know, it's been a journey. It really has. But I always say that I probably didn't need and want a kid at a young age, but Tungashila, creator, always knows what to give you. And I think I always tell my daughter, I think you saved my life, made me be better, made me want more. I was always an achiever in high school. I graduated a valedictorian. I graduated with presidential scholarship and honors for my ACT scores and such. But when I had my daughter in high school, I just knew that I needed to make a way better life for not just myself, but for her and my family. And through the years, of trials and tribulations, but also triumphs, my family does some amazing things. And so myself personally, I don't really like to, um, I try to be humble, I guess, if you will. But so I have a movie coming out this summer with Kevin Costner, one of his new flicks called Horizon, an American Saga. And then I also model. So I've modeled in France. I modeled in New York Fashion Week, California, and a lot of various places. I actually did 17 shows last year, representing a lot of different designers throughout the country. And I always hesitant to share that because I've never seen myself as a model. And to be truthful, I've never seen myself in a way of, I don't want to discredit myself or anything, but in a way of being handsome or anything like that, because I being a shamed Indian kid in non-native communities, and so to my confidence. And so to be able to heal the inner child in myself through modeling and acting and public speaking, it's really healing for me as an adult, And so I'm all things, but the greatest thing
I think your signal is breaking up, man.
as a father to my children.
I think your
Can you hear me
signal
now?
was breaking. Well, we could hear you, but it was like breaking up. Is anyone else
Okay.
getting the signal breaking up? Yeah.
Is
So
okay, is it
it might be are you in Laurel Brule now?
yeah, oh my, Lower Brewer Res Internet probably acting up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've experienced it. Yeah, it can be spotty sometimes. But we'll
Yes.
go ahead and do
Yeah,
the best
yeah.
we can.
I'm off running off cell service now, so maybe that'd be better.
Okay.
But I grew up with a broken lifestyle, a broken home and a broken environment. I was primarily raised by my grandmother for most of my life. And you know, there's a cool PBS article that PBS did about me and my brother and my grandmother. But one of the best things that she ever said, and that she ever did, and she said, was to help me and my twin brothers. She put her wings around us and just protected us and helped us grow. And so, that's really impactful to me because she showed me, I learned everything about a negative lifestyle. She showed me and changed my perception to a positive and a healthy lifestyle. And so, my grandmother is no longer here with me, but she's always with me. And so, I like to always share stories in a good way for her spirit and her honor. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and I guess that's a little bit about me.
Well, yeah, okay. So let's look into storytelling. Let's talk a little bit about storytelling, if you don't mind. Uh, what's the value of storytelling? What do people get out of it? What do you try to bring?
So some of every storyteller has different gifts that they bring to the table through their abilities to tell the story. And some of the things that I bring to the table with my gifts of storytelling is authenticity. I bring emotion, connectiveness, and I also paint a hope that, and I mean, I guess I paint a picture and a better perspective for, you know, for a great diversity of group to understand that, I might be talking from a Native American perspective or some values, but I bring it into a way that it goes full circle that everybody can relate. And, I tap into our emotions, which makes it even more powerful. And so then the ability of storytelling, we have stories and myths and fiction and nonfiction tales that have been around for centuries, for hundreds of years. And before we knew how to read or write, we would sit by the campfire and we sit in the presence of each other and we tell these stories. We tell them to keep our history. We tell them to keep our culture and our traditions. We tell them to honor those people that we thought highly of. We tell them in a way so that we didn't repeat the negative things of a history. And there's a lot of ability in storytelling. We tell them we also have the ability through storytelling to create positive bridges and connection with people that often, today, and I love it because today I would never be able to be in your guys' audience if I wasn't given this opportunity today. And now I get the opportunity to not just influence, but try to impact you and try to give you a different perspective and a different understanding into my world, but also the world of others around you.
Mm-hmm. So now that we have a kind of a 50,000-foot view of the value of storytelling, maybe you could share with us a story that give us some kind of idea of like the kind of stories that you tell.
Yeah, so I really contemplated after we talked yesterday of what story I wanted to take, and I start thinking like, what's a story I'd love to hear? What's a value that I care about? What's a value that you think other people need to learn about? And and then speaking with you, I really was stuck on humility. And I said it myself, being humble, it's kind of a double-edged sword sometimes for me, being humble. I don't want to share a lot of my success. Because some of my family members lateral oppress me and they get if I share too much, then they give you, who do you think you are? You're still from Loreboro. You're still the same little Indian kid I remember growing up, kind of those things. And so it kind of hurts me a little bit, but on the same side, the double-edged sword of being, you can inspire others through that ability. I get messages from kids from all over Indian country, saying, hey, I'm from Manderson, South Dakota, and I follow your journey and you inspired me. And when that's the double-edged sword of it. And so the story I wanted to share though with the audience of humility was because in our societies, social media, everything else, we just forget that value. We forget that other people have problems, and we're so quick to just not have compassion and grace and understanding for others. And I think it really starts with humility. And also the story I'm gonna tell, it kind of talks about leadership in a way, but it also talks about like being the unsung hero of leadership. And so the story I want to share with you guys today is a story that's one of my personal favorites. It's called No Moccasins. And No Moccasins, so there was a band before a reservation area, and this man, he went to court this other woman from a different band, and they ended up marrying. And they were together for a few years. They didn't have no kids, but they were starting to make their journey together. And the man that chose this woman, he was a good warrior. He was a good hunter. He had status. He had a lot of honors. He had a lot of eagle feathers. And in Native American society, you were given eagle feathers by the deeds you did. So if you think of the chiefs in old historical pictures, you can see some of their eagle feathers hang to the ground. Some of them are short. Some might only have 3 feathers, something, but you were always given those by the deeds of other people, how you helped them, what you did for the community. And so you kind of got to signify who your leaders were. This man that over the years, he accumulated a lot of great things, a lot of great deeds, and he was a leader. Well, one night, an enemy band came to the camp and they stole some women. And when they stole the women, one of them was his wife. So he went on the war party to get the woman back from the community. Well, before the other Native American tribe got back to their encampment, they intercepted them. They ended up getting their woman back, but unfortunately, two of the male warriors were taken and captured. And so they got the women back with the other warriors, but two of the men were captured and they were put into the camp and they were put as prisoners. And they were humiliated in the center of the camp every day, every night. They were, they were naked. They had to fight for scraps from the dogs. They were just the enemy. They took the women, so they wanted to die a slow, painful death. And one night, the warrior, he started praying to Creator, to Tungashila, and he started asking Tungashila. He said, pity me. He said, I know I shouldn't ask you for this, but please, strike me dead in this moment because I'm suffering. I don't want to live. I'm away from my wife. I'm weak. I'm being treated this way and such. And it was raining and it was cold. And he said that he thought that the Creator gave him his answer, or gave him his gift, answered his prayer. And so in that way, as the rain was coming down, he started kind of looking, and he was hallucinating a little bit. He was kind of really weak, and he said he thought that Creator let him see his wife one last time, and eventually it was real. His wife had snuck into the encampment on the rainy night, and she started untying him from his bondage. She escaped him out of there, and they took off. While the warriors realized that he was gone, they sent a search party out, and they didn't have no horses. They didn't have any. The lady and the husband didn't have no horses, and they had to kind of be sneaky to get away. They were miles and miles away from their camp. Well, when they went and they were getting away, they had to hide in an old bear cave. They had to, put all these different fake trails around to try to lure them to other places. They had to do all these things to try to get them to go away. Well, they couldn't shake the war party that was after them. And, in Lakota society, nobody ever escapes and such. And so the warriors were ticked off. They really wanted to find these people. They really wanted to bring them back because it was disrespectful and dishonorable, and it made them warriors in their community look bad. And so they were hiding. While the wife, she ended up realizing she knew that the husband was unable to run, that he was unable to really go a far distance in a short little time. So she went to the river. And at the river, she went downstream and she stayed along the riverbanks and she walked across for miles and miles. And then eventually she crossed the stream and she took off her moccasins and she left them at one edge of the stream. She went back into the stream and started walking upstream to her husband while hiding. And the warriors that were after them, they started after those tracks, and then they started and they found the moccasins, and they thought, wow, she took her moccasins off and they still headed, I'm gonna just say they headed east because she was headed east. Well, she did the old trick, she tricked them and she headed back west. Her and her husband, they end up making it safely back to their home encampment. To the surprise of everybody, everybody thought that the warrior was deceased and he was no longer with the people. And then also in Native American culture and society, we didn't think of it as suicide, but Native people were connected so deep that if the woman felt she wanted to, she can take her own life to be with her husband, and vice versa. The man can go with her husband, I don't share that part with little kids at all, because we do have a suicide problem in our community. But for us, I can share that because of the deep connection, the deep love and relationship they had. But they thought that she went and was mourning and decided to do the ceremony to take her life to be with her husband. So to the shock and surprise of everybody, they showed up to the encampment. But before they got to the encampment, the wife said, I don't want you to tell anybody what I did. We don't speak of this ever again. We don't say anything. We just carry on. We move forward. You tell him whatever you want to tell him. So the husband, he didn't really tell him he didn't really say too much, but he just told the people, we escaped and I found my wife on the way back and we're together here again. He left it short and sweet. And over the years, he went back on the war duty. He went back on the hunting parties and the protector and provider and being the warrior spirit and the warrior ideals that we have. And he started getting more honors, and he had more than before. And he always attested that it was his wife's strength that gave him this, that allowed him to do that. And every time he went to the battlefield or on a hunting party, he carried his wife with him more than before. And that's what made him even stronger. And so when his time finally come, he was about to pass in his old age. And he decided, he said, call all the relatives from every band, tell them to come to my teepee. They came to his teepee. They all came from near and far. And in that teepee, he said, in my old age, I accumulated all these accomplishments. I have all these deeds. I have all these accolades. My teepee, this side is full of all these beautiful things that the people have given to me. He said, but I want to go on my journey in peace. And I want to tell you all something. He said, all those years ago when I escaped and you guys believed it, that I escaped, that's not what really happened. He said, what really happened was my wife came to the encampment. She snuck in by herself. She got me out. She brought me back, and she told me not to tell anybody. And so every time I went to the war party and the hunting party, I carried her strength with me, and it made me better. It made me stronger than 100 men because of the love and power that she carried with her. How we got away, she took her moccasins off. And when we got back to our encampment, her feet were sore and blistered and bloody and cut, and all this from walking through the prairies and the conditions and the elements. And she did not complain once. She said, but I want you guys to know that all these accolades that I received are not mine. They're my wife's. And in her humble demeanor and her humility, she did not want to take anything away from me being a man. She didn't want no honors. She didn't want no accolades. She didn't want none of that. All she wanted was her husband and the love that we shared for each other. So she risked everything to make me, or to come get me. And I tell you this now, and I wished that all of you told everybody that my wife had done this. And so they shared the stories near and far, and the husband ended up passing away. And so the wife was left everything. Well, she ended up giving it to all the different warrior societies our people had to share it because, she wasn't a hunter. She wasn't a warrior. So she shared it and said to, help my people live on in a good way. Give it to young warriors. Well, when she passed, years later, the wife, she passed away. And when she passed away, people from thousands of miles away, near and far, came to her scaffolding, came to her ceremony. And when she passed, they told her story of what she did. And the most beautiful thing of this all was when she went to the spirit journey and continued on to the other side, she was left thousands and thousands of moccasins because her people wanted her to know that they never wanted her to go a day without no moccasins ever again. And so her people left her all those moccasins, and they knew that her power and her story were beautiful, and they knew that her humility is what was the strength and all that. She didn't want any of that recognition, acknowledgement, prizes, awards. She just wanted what most of us want in our own lives: love, relationships, connectedness, and just human interaction. She would have given everything for that. And so for her giving her pair of moccasins away to save their lives, she got 1,000 more in return. And her people, we remember her today, no moccasins.
That's a beautiful story, man. Very beautiful story, Kansas. Well, I want to take a break to give folks an opportunity to ask questions, interact. What questions do any of you have, or any stories, comments, or anything? This is interactive. Dun, 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 dun. Go ahead, Vicki.
In the beginning, you said something about you didn't particularly want to share the negative And recently I heard somebody say if we had peace all the time, we wouldn't know what it's like to have wars. It's the negative against the positive. And I kind of believe that you have to compare the two or you can't experience the other. So I nobody wants to be morose or anything, but I think the negative has its place, even in storytelling. And I think I understand that, but in a way I don't really. I believe in the negative because it often motivates us to a higher point once we've experienced it. What do you think?
So I definitely believe in the negative, and I really will read my audience if I'm able to share some kind of negative or darker stuff and I have a triumph kind of victory with it that I typically do, I always share it. But with the part of the negativity that I don't like to share, I guess overall I do love the negative aspect of storytelling, because we do have to have that balance of life. Without the sunshine, there's no rain. Without the positive, there's without the negative, there's no positive. And so I do share those because everybody loves a good triumph story. Everybody loves to see the growth in others and such. But a lot of times I try not to share the negative components, and not in a way to try to dismiss or not really speak of the problems or issues at hand, but in a sense, the negatives are easy to point out. We all know what the negatives and what the problems are. We all have that at the forefront of our mind. What I try to use is the ability to say, hey, that's obvious of the negativities, but let's get our minds to the positive aspect of things, because if we dwell on the negative a little too much, or we give life to that negative spirit, and it's like we're feeding it and we're allowing it to grow, and then we're allowing it to consume not just ourselves but others and people around us. And so it's like, what wolf do you want to feed, the good wolf or the bad wolf? And so everything's about balance in life, but it's just, what do you want to highlight? And so I agree with you. Negative does have its place. The bad does have its place, and we can't tiptoe around the negative realities that we all face. We can't we can't walk around eggshells and not trying to offend others, but we just have to be, I just want to say it as of a place of, like I said at the beginning, the problems are there. We know the issues, we know the problems. Let's think of the positive solutions, or even the positive thinking that can come from that.
I think it's worthwhile saying too that we often hear a lot about the negatives. So for us on the outside, we hear a lot about all of the things that don't happen. But what I find is missing is a lot of times people don't know all of the so many triumphs and the struggles that people had to make and are making, day by day, personal and collectively, especially on the res, the various places, people are doing extraordinary things to overcome the hurdles, but we're still thinking it's only bad news. That's because we don't hear anything. So I agree with Vicky that there is, the place for that. But I think also that there is a very good place for saying, hey, people aren't just giving up, because otherwise we're basically telling our kids there's no hope. And unfortunately, we like to push that narrative like it's hopeless. There's nothing you can do. We usually say it's always been that way. It will always be that way. So you're telling people, oh, give up. And I think that's the worst thing that could happen to us relative to solving problems, is to lose hope. And seeing examples of how things actually are getting better, and people are, even if it's small victories, seeing those small victories really encourages another person to try, well, let's try one more small victory. And pretty soon all of that, a lot of that stuff is history. You will have new problems, but the old ones, you've done something about.
Yes, and just real quick, lastly, that I want to touch on just quickly with that is through my storytelling. And Lawrence and I talked just briefly about this yesterday, but through my ability in storytelling is, when I get new audiences, if it's Native people and non-Native people, I like to tell, some of the negative and the true histories of our people. But if you think of Native culture and some of the things we get hung up on intergenerational trauma, um, epigenetics and things like that. And that's real. I'm not trying to gaslight it and dismiss it and say it's not. But if I continue to pour the narrative of intergenerational trauma to my people, I'm allowing them to have the mindset of being a victim to our problems that happened in the past that are still present today, that are still affecting our people today. But then I allow their mindset to be stuck in that victim mentality of saying, hey, yes, this happened to me, and that's why I'm this way. That's why my family has these generational curses and problems. So on the flip side of the storytelling that I try to use and create with my platform is I try to say, hey, there was intergenerational trauma. There was all these bad things that happened to my people. But guess what? I'm here with a brown face and long hair sitting before you because my ancestors had intergenerational strength as well. I'm still able to speak my language because they hung on to that, even if USA and the government said, you cannot do this. 1978, the Native Americans had the Indian Religious Act where we were finally able to be who we were able to be as Lakota people. So them are the realities. But if I want to paint the narrative of the victim mentality, that's not going to do me and my people no good. That's not going to do others good. But if I can say, hey, we're strong, resilient, we got intergenerational strength and resiliency with us because I have my culture today and I'm still learning it. That's what we can teach our kids. And I can also share with others that, hey, my people, we struggle in these ways through the res life, but we have intergenerational strength with us it's in my blood. It's in my DNA. It's even in my hair. It's that. So that's the picture I can paint with that. And that's what I would rather use because it's so easy to get caught up in the negative. Colby asked me a question in the chat and I want to segue into that real fast. So Rising Stars is my main small business that I own. Rising Stars it's a for-profit company because to be truthful, I'm a one-man kind of a show, but I do a lot of community work within my community and other communities. So Rising Stars, already nothing this year because the new year just popped off. But last year we did 3 or 4 different winter coat drives for the community. We did supply giveaways, food giveaways, and then through my networking and partnership, I collaborate with organizations and different people from across the United States, and we give resources to our community, especially our youth. With Rising Stars, I'm a consultant. And so I consult with educational companies here in South Dakota. I work with the Sioux Falls area schools, the Rapid City area schools, Aurora Plains Academy, McCrossings Boys Ranch, and various tribal schools that I work to bring workshops to our young people. And the workshops I try to do is, it's not a program where it's the Cinderella shoe, where hopefully it fits every student. No, that's not the reality we live in. I worked workshops that I give is I meet my students where they're at, especially our Native kids, and I find where they're at and I give them the resources and tools that I don't have, but that they have that they just don't know about yet. So we work on vision boards, we work on finding out their goals, their dreams, and just really find how to tailor those, how to write it out, how to create an action plan, really just growth for our young people because, we don't get that all the time. And so like I said, I was raised by my grandmother. So my grandmother, strong woman, would work a 9 to 5, go home, cook and clean, still be at basketball games and football games and everything. And I was like, man, I wonder how my grandma has all that energy, right? And so she didn't get the energy to say, hey, this is what you should be doing. This is what your dreams should look like. She didn't get that because she was trying to keep me and my twin brother out of survival mode. and so we can thrive. And so others had the ability to do that. And now I'm just using my abilities to give back to my youth in that way. And then with other non-native groups and non-native people, I use storytelling. I use the same workshops because, most people think that's just a Native American problem that we deal with here on the res. No, it's the same problems everybody else deals with in America or as human beings. But my community, it's just magnified because we're so little people. We're the smallest minority group in the country, and we have the worst in the some people might say worse, some people might say best. We have the highest statistic rates for negative things and across America. Suicide rates, preventable disease, life expectancy, poverty rates. I can go on list. And so if I was to share all those negative things with my young people, they're gonna be like, dang, all these things that make my life hard, it'll get them in that negative mind. So I'm like, no, we're strong, we're resilient, we're warriors, we're this, we're that, we're anything we want to be. And so that's what my Rising Stars initiative does. But what I also do is I don't just work with youth. I consult with school boards, school systems, and I do workshops with teachers at Teacher in Services. So my next big one I have coming up is Jackson County Central in Minnesota. I'm doing some training days with their staff, and just like I said, I do it with culturally people, but also I take the cultural component and just make it a people thing with my workshops and stuff, because we all need that little connectiveness. And then with my back to the youth again, the best thing that I do with my youth is I do experiential learning with our youth. And so we get really get to put them in scenarios, controlled scenarios. We get to see what their thoughts are. We get to see how they react and what they're going to do in certain situations, rather than saying, this might happen to you in life, and this is how you should respond in a book answer. You know what I mean? We're giving them controlled experiences.
Excellent. Anyone else have anything they want to add or ask before we go forward? Well, let's talk about, you talked a little bit about it, but let's talk about building self-esteem through the stories. Can you talk a little bit about how your stories help people to revision or re-envision themselves, maybe have a new model, a new idea of who they could be?
So the ability of storytelling, and I always tell our young people and people I get to work with in this capacity, is that the greatest thing about us and our ability is that we get to write our own story. We get to define what every chapter looks like through our own actions, our own decisions, and our own abilities. And so when we realize that, that's kind of a confidence thing in itself, because sometimes we're operating off the expectations of others. We're operating off of the judgment of others. And when we can kind of put those down and decide and can take control over our lives and what we want that to look like, we can go back to being authentically who we want to be. And that people don't realize that that's going to benefit not just ourselves, but everybody around us. It's going to allow that true light to grow and to shine. And the way we do that, the way I do that as well, is when I'm rebuilding when I'm helping do storytelling workshops a little bit, and I know my audience and I've been doing this a while, but I'll be vulnerable in my own ways. Most people, we have our guards up like this, ready to protect ourselves, ready to fight, ready to freeze, whatever. And we do that because we're conditioned, and we're conditioned to think people are judging us. We're conditioned to not want to step out and be who we want to be. And so when I share my vulnerability with people, it allows people to say, man, Kansas, who's leading this and facilitating this, and who I thought is perfect, isn't so perfect. He makes mistakes. He owns it, right? We can teach ourselves accountability through those. And That's one thing that we all can work on, is a little bit of accountability, but we can also work on, so building confidence, we can define our dreams, we can define our goals, we can define what we want to do. And like I said, we have the ability to implement those through our own actions and choices. And that's what storytelling does for ourselves, is it gives us that opportunity to reflect on who we want to be, what's important to us, why it's important to us, and what we want to give off in this world, either personally or socially, for everybody. And either way, it's going to benefit somebody, because either somebody's going to look at you and say, I love the way you stand in your power as a person. And on the backside of that, they might say, I love the way you stand in your power for your people. And so both are hitting the individuality and the collective of just being you. And so if we can, you know, really just be so, if we can just be real with ourselves and authentic, and just write down our own vulnerabilities, our own imperfections, that's gonna honestly give us power by taking the power away from others to use those against us, right? And that slowly allows that guard to come down, because Kansas, prejudice and racism and discrimination still happens today in South Dakota. And the other day I was in Chamberlain, and I was wearing a shirt, and somebody said, Kansas, you better not go into some of these other stores with that shirt on. And it was a different store. I just knew the clerk. And I looked at my shirt, and I was like, and it was nothing bad, nothing negative, but they said, people might not like that shirt around here. So I said, huh, that's okay. I said, I'm Indian. People already don't like me for being brown skin anyway. So what's a shirt gonna do about it? And exactly, they gave the same laugh in response as you did, because hey, right, nobody's gonna hurt me, because I know who I am, I know what I am, and I know that anybody's stereotypical opinion of me, or biased opinion over a shirt, isn't even me. And so that's the power we can have with doing that, writing our own story, creating our own story, being authentic in that way, and being personal in that way. Love me, but love everything about me, the bad, the good, and sometimes the ugly.
That you make a very good point about looking at sort of owning your own story and finding your voice to tell your story, and telling your story to yourself too, just not only to others, but re-envisioning yourself and realizing that you are writing your own story every day, every moment, and being able to not only tell the story, but to live the story.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's another point to life, I mean, if we're not living our own story, then uh, who
What
are
are we
we?
doing, right?
Yeah. What are we doing? Yeah, and who are we? And if we lose ourselves, then what difference does the rest of it make?
And and
Go
then
ahead.
to capitalize on that, I say one of my things is building using storytelling to build resiliency. I do it every day no, not every day, but when I face hard issues, or a problem arises, and the old me, the young me, used to be like, oh, end of the world, what, oh my God. Now I can look back and I can say, man, Kansas, you encountered and went through some of the hardest things in life. You did things that would break people. You overcame so much. You're gonna overcome this too, because you got the strength. Your story tells and like you said, you can reflect on it. You can say, hey, I did overcome all these, and you can carry that strength with you, right? That
Yes,
intergenerational strength that we have within ourselves.
that's right. And to carry on with that same idea, we undervalue a lot of our small stories and their power to help us overcome bigger things.
Hmm?
If I'll share a story. When I was in elementary school, I was still sucking my thumb. And of course, as if you're in the fifth or sixth grade and sucking your thumb, that's it's it's a kind of like not a thing. And I went through some changes to, like, I didn't want to be teased about it. And actually, the flavor had gone long ago. So it wasn't getting anything out of the thumb anyway. So I thought, okay, I need to lick this, so to speak. This, and so I learned to change my mind to overcome that habit. Later, I was able to use that same psychology to overcome smoking cigarettes. I was smoking 3 packs a day, you know, and I was able to summon that part of my experience to quit smoking. And since then, use that same thing to find a way to internally move things around in my head to be a different person, to change, to be a person as I realize, oh, there's a different person to be. And that's more desirable than the person I am now. Let me change that. And that's been very greatly beneficial. But that story, living that and owning it and playing that part around in my head, that's a small story that I was able to turn into some very beneficial other stories.
That's I love that because I do the similar thing with our youth.
Mm.
So we have a lot of youth that are good basketball players and athletes, and I'm like, transition those skills into the educational setting. And that's how easy it is. And I'm like, you show up for practice every day, show up for class every day. You math, I tell these kids and relate to them, you're practicing, you're dribbling, do it in this way. And now you're going to be a better student, and so being able to reflect on our stories allows us to identify what our skills are, allows us to transition them over and know that we have those. But like I said, it also allows us to reflect and grow. And then it reminds us of skills that we might have forgot, or abilities that we often forget that we don't have. So storytelling can be utilized in many ways for ourselves, for others. But either way, it has a benefit. And I think that, we all have a great, powerful story to tell. And, like you said, we all need to share it. And I do appreciate you guys allowing me to share some of my stories with you guys today, some of my personal stories, some from my community. And I hope that, you guys took something away from this. And I appreciate the safe place that you guys created for us to have this today.
Can you tell us more about your workshops and how people might be able to have you have a workshop and help them to do, to tell their stories?
Oh, yes. So I have various workshops, but my storytelling workshop, I like to try to come into schools, communities. I even do them at conferences. If they're a couple-day conference, I can get them. But, anyways, what I do is I need at least a minimum of 2 days. I'd like to get, a 4-day max to do it initially. But what we do with our storytelling is we just, we do some broad stuff that I put up on my presentations just for general knowledge. And then, some people, you're going to find their abilities. They're going to be great storytellers, and some kind of don't care about it, which is okay. But then you're going to be able to grow some of those, and you're going to be able to just, keep it broad for others so they just have the ability. But our workshops, we're able to just create a foundation. And like I said, we're able just to sit down and learn through each other in different positive ways. And then at the end of it, pretty much, I just like to tell people, quickly, is it's a glorified journaling session that we learn how to put it in order to make it make sense in time frames, chronological order, any of those. But we bring the topics and the points that we want to hit. We want to, our objectives. Why did you want to tell this story? And then we get it to flow a little better. 1 second, I know I had a question. The question that was in the chat was, how do people contact me or get a hold of me? My email to get a hold of me is kansasmiddletent@gmail.com. Real simple. I had to make it that way so no confusion was there. But my social media, if you guys would like to give me a follow, is Kansas Middletent on Facebook. It's just Kansas Middletent. Yep, that's the email right there. And then Instagram, I go by a different user handle, but it's Superman 605. And it's Superman is SIOUXPERMAN. Had to add my own little pun to it. And then I don't really Twitter too much. You can find me on Twitter, but it's not really my platform. X, I guess they would say. And yeah, you guys can just email me. I love to, my phone is always with me. I'm one of those millennials where, I even have the Apple Watch and whatnot, so I get all my notifications. Double-edged sword too, because people know I got my watch and like, I called you. No.
You didn't call me right back.
Yeah.
That was 30 seconds ago, man. And you didn't call me. What's wrong?
And so, yeah, if you guys, if you could, one thing that really helps me, if you guys could, do me a solid, if you can maybe just write a brief paragraph of, some pros and cons or some feedback of this work of our storytelling session we had. And then if you would really want, you can add it onto my, social media page or something. That'd be, a real solid if you did that, but just send them email to me. And that way it just helps me grow a little bit.
Right.
I'm kind of rebuilding myself a little bit from before pre-COVID. Man, I was knocking things out the park, and I really was on my way to being more influential, or I don't even like influential, I say impactful. I was to be more impactful and to get things out there. And then when COVID hit, man, it just it really shook a lot of things up for everybody. But my
Yeah.
small business really took a hit, and so now I'm finally, back on track, and I'm finally refocused and ready to just do a lot of great things.
Yeah. Well, that's another way that people could help you with that is we put this on YouTube. And so if you go on the YouTube in the comment section, you can, I think our comment section is open, isn't it, Colby? People can comment. Okay, so you can go into the comment section on YouTube under this program and then put in some comments there. That always
Okay.
helps as well. As you were talking about that, though, one of the things I thought about is one, are you a artist in residence for the State Arts Council?
I apply every now and then, but yeah, no,
You
I'm
haven't
not.
got
No,
you're not, but you would like to be?
yes.
Okay, let's have a conversation. We'll see what we can do to put some wind in those sails.
Okay.
Because I think what you're doing could be very useful. And the other thing is, would you be willing to come into the prison to teach people how to tell their stories?
Oh, I would definitely love to do that. I have some of my best friends that just weren't as fortunate as I was, and
Mm.
some of their bad choices, landed them there, and now, I want to be able to prevent that for
Right.
my people.
Yeah. I think that again, we underestimate the power of our stories. And we often have let's say we're not encouraged to tell our stories. We're encouraged to listen to other people's stories, but we can have our own stories too. And even if we only tell them to ourselves, those are important stories. And depending on your ability to tell a story, you will not only inspire people, let them know who you are, but
Mhm.
more important, they can see who they are. And if if people don't know our story, do they really know us? And so it just seems to me that what you have to bring to the table is so valuable to people. And I see it a lot in the prison where people, you know, we do, let's say, workshops on poetry or something, and they say, well, I don't know what to say, what is it about me? There's nothing special about me. I say, wait a minute. One of the requisites to getting into prison is you have to have a story. They don't let you in here without a story, So if all the people who don't have no story, they can't get in. So you have a story. The question is whether or not you're going to tell that story
Mhm.
and how you tell that story. And I think that also extends to each of us. We could learn a lot from you and from the kinds of things that you're bringing to people, the ability to tell their story. Um, any last thoughts? We're right at the end of our road here. Any last thoughts you would like to leave with us?
I
Um,
think that vulnerability should be taught as a strength.
Yes. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna tell you that, you know, we do have there is power in our own stories, and I encourage you all to, you know, take time to reflect and start writing your stories. To, you know, I know everybody leads busy lives, but if you really just set 5, 10, 15 minutes aside to just journal, even just your thoughts, you'd be surprised on where that would really take you and how far you can reflect, and, you know, and how much therapy that truly is for ourselves. Like I tell everybody I work with, and especially our youth that I get to work with, you know, everything that we already need is inside of us. We already have all the tools. We just need help bringing them out. But everything's there for us that we need. And then the ability that we do have is the ability to learn and to grow and to gain knowledge. And that's just going to help bring those tools out within us as well. And so storytelling, it's just like a hammer and a nail. It's just another tool that we can have in our bag of resources to help us move forward in life. So I encourage you guys to find that story of yours, and to own it and to tell it and to share it with the world.
Thank you. And with that, thank you everyone for coming and sharing this time with us. We'll be here at the same time, same station next Thursday. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.